My first 90 days in country was probably the most intense of my life. I was probably in over about 100 firefights.
Paul Tribus never expected to leave Vietnam alive.
I was scared to death. I was literally scared to death, thinking like, I'm going to die.
Find out how another soldier's story calmed his fears and how Paul's wounds finally healed 20 years later. And Grammy winner CeCe Winans tells about her newest passion, helping teenage girls discover who they really are. Plus, a live performance from her latest CD. But first,
an IED went off, and it pretty much knocked me out.
This soldier nearly had his head blown off, literally.
We have about half the skull, almost half the skull missing.
Find out why they now call him the $6 Million Man, and meet the doctor who gave him a replacement skull.
Well, welcome to the 700 Club. It's Veterans Day, and we'd like to salute all our veterans and active duty military. Thank you for your service to our country.
We also have a great studio audience with us today, and Gordon, they are all fired up about Bring It On, so you better get ready.
Well, they're not looking fired up right now. They're dwelling in darkness over there. What, couldn't we light them? Anyway, but first in the news, soldiers in Iraq are fighting daily battles against the enemy, and those struggles don't always end when they leave Iraq.
Many soldiers return home with severe injuries, but now advanced medical technology is coming to their rescue. Here's David Brody.
It is a war that has taken lives. Those soldiers will be remembered as American heroes. But what about the ones that make it out alive? Many of them come home wounded. A long road of rehabilitation ahead. The battlefield for them is no longer the Iraqi desert. It's now inside a hospital room. Here at the Walter Reed Army Medical Center, they are working on medical miracles every day. Imagine for a moment that you're a soldier in the Iraq War and you have part of your skull blown off. Well, that's where the doctors here come in. They are working on this amazing technology that goes ahead and puts the skull back together again. Dr. Arge Fry is part of the team at the 3D Application Center. She's in the business of skull restoration.
We have about half the skull, almost half the skull missing, and our goal is to design and construct an implant that will make this person whole again.
The process is medical modeling, and it's called serialography. It starts with a CAT scan of the patient, then onto the computer, where Dr. Fry and her team make a virtual model of a patient's skull. Then they design the implant to fit inside the open part of the skull, and then pop. A perfect implant and a brand new skull. It may look easy, but it's not. There is no room for mistakes. Finally, after going through a high-tech machine, the computer layout becomes a prototype reality.
And then we get this model.
From there, a new team of doctors will make the actual implant, and then comes the eventual surgery. This new technology can get very technical. But all the while, Dr. Fry never loses focus on why she's doing this.
It's not just I'm in some lab doing something, not a person. It is a real person that I'm working on.
One of those people is David Emmy. He was in Iraq for 7 weeks, and then, on November 19, 2004, his life changed in an instant.
An IED went off, and it pretty much knocked me out.
When that improvised explosive device went off, David thought he was going to die. But one of his Army buddies saved him.
Specialist rescue didn't return fire, and he started bandaging up my head to stop the bleeding so as to save my life.
David was in a coma for 10 days. The next thing he knew, he woke up in a hospital bed here at Walter Reed. His injuries were significant. Shrapnel in his left eye, some teeth destroyed, his eardrum was blown out. But worst of all, part of his skull was missing.
People would look at me kind of funny. I knew that when, somebody, say a pretty young gal, I knew they were looking and saying, well, I'm probably not going to even talk to this guy, because, it's not that attractive.
And so the long road to recovery began. For David, the odd looks he was getting were about to change. His skull was about to be put back together again.
I don't want to say we're saving lives, but we're saving quality of life. Their buddies are saving their lives out in the field.
Today, David doesn't get those odd looks anymore. The healing has begun.
Can you do me a favor and take off your hat and show us a little bit about what you've got there?
What I have is a prosthetic skull. It's roughly, just, if I put my hand here, it's roughly the size of my hand.
For David, the difference is not just a cosmetic one. He had severe headaches before the skull surgery. Now the headaches are much better. But dealing with headaches would have been nothing compared to death. David's convinced that that would have been his fate without this technology.
People really can't tell if I have a prosthetic skull. So they did a really good job on that. And they're doing amazing things because I know at some point in the past I probably would have died.
It's just so rewarding to see that look in their face when they have received their own foreheads that they had lost, their own contours. I can't find the words to explain it, but to say it's very rewarding.
Modern medical technology strikes again, and so now one of David's female friends has a special name for him.
She introduced me to somebody. She said, this is a living proof of the $6 million man because of all the technology that goes into putting us back together.
When you got into the field a long time ago, you never thought you'd be putting someone's skull back together again.
I didn't have the slightest idea, but I love it. I love it. This is what I would like to keep on doing.
Dr. Fry will continue to press on, creating more medical miracles every day. For David, he wants to eventually go into full-time ministry work, a noble goal for a brave soldier who has endured a lot and been a witness to the best medical technology has to offer. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
We certainly need to honor our veterans and those who have sacrificed so much for this country. And it's incredible the miracles that modern medicine are able to bring, both in terms of prosthetics and literally recreate